Welcome to this week's Chinuch Hashkafa message is Parshas Voeschanan. This is an action-packed parsha, but I thought maybe we could think about talking to our children about something so fundamental in the parsha that maybe, because we take it so for granted and it's such an important foundational concept in Yiddishkeit, that maybe we don't spend enough time talking about it with our children. And I'm referring, of course, to the pasuk Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Something that we teach our children from very young. Something that we repeat every single day. We say it, and we say it with our children when they get up and when they go to sleep. But I think maybe in this week's parsha it's a good idea just to stop for a little bit. There's so much on this pasuk, of course, but just to have a look at it very simple from the Mefarshim and the Chumash, some nice ideas, some interesting concepts, and also some hashkafa concepts which are so important to discuss and share with our children. Now, of course, Shema fundamentally is about our faith in one Hashem, in one God, that He is the only ruler and everything comes from Him, and so on and so forth. But it needs to be built up a little bit, and it needs some discussions. Here are a few ideas. Now, I don't want it to be limited to these ideas, of course. On the contrary, open up a Chumash, open up a Farshim, Hebrew, English, whatever it is, and explore the pasuk a little bit and share age-appropriate things with your children. But here are some sort of ideas. So, we know that Shema Yisrael in the Torah and in the Mezuzah and so on, the Ayin of Shema and the Dalid of Echad are big. As we know, there are big oisius in the Torah, there are small letters, and there are regular letters. So Ayin and Dalid of Shema, of course, are the big letters, part of the big letters. What's the idea? So, of course, the accepted concept is that Ayin and Dalid makes up the word aid. Aid means a witness, because when we say Shema, we are testifying to Hashem's oneness and our belief in Hashem. It also, if we switch the letters around, it makes the word Da. Da means to know, which is the idea of emunah, that it's not just enough to believe, but you have to talk about belief and understand it a little bit so that we internalize it and it becomes part of our life. We apply it to the way we live. The Baal HaTurim says something very interesting. I'm just going to share it with you. He talks about the ayin rabasi. He talks about the big ayin, and he says that, and this is something he refers to in Parsha in Sefer Bamidbar as well, that the Shema is big because the ayin is big because, first of all, there are 70. Ayin, of course, has the gematria, the numerical value of 70. There are 70 names that are used in the Chumash in Tanakh for Klal Yisrael, and in Bamidbar he goes through all the 70. You can have a look if you want in the Baal HaTurim, Bamidbar Perek Yud Aleph, Pasuk Tes Zayin. When he talks about the 70 people of the Sanhedrin, there he goes through the 70 descriptions of Am Yisrael. How beloved they are to Hashem, how close they are to Hashem. 70 descriptions about the Yidden and their closeness to Hashem, which is amazing. He also talks about 70 names of Hashem, which are expressed in the Torah. Have a look in the same Baal HaTurim. We also know that the Chazal tell us that everything in Torah is nidreshes ba'ayin panim, shivim panim la Torah. Torah is so great and so deep that we can understand everything in Torah from 70 different angles. Another hint in the number in the ayin and the 70. It's an important number, and also important to know and to discuss this idea that our commitment to Torah mitzvahs and the fact that we have the Shema and Hashem chose us as a nation is what sets us apart from the Ayin Umois, from the Shivim Umois, from the 70 nations of the world. Now in Shema we also have this idea of Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And the Mefarshim talk about a very important thing. The Baal HaTurim himself talks about it as well. That we know that Hashem and Elokeinu are two names of Hashem that represent many different ideas, but one of the ideas is that Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem is the name of Rachamim, the name of mercy, which is the name Hashem uses when He shows us compassion and He gives us brachas and He gives us all good things. But sometimes we find that Hashem is Elokeinu. Elokeinu means that it's Midas Hadin. It's the name of judgment. It's a name which sometimes means that certain things that come from Hashem are hidden. Sometimes we don't understand what Hashem does, and it comes like in Midas Hadin. This is also sort of reflected in the Gemara, where there's one bracha that is made for very good things that happen, and there's one bracha that is made for chas shalom, that things that are not so good when they happen. So the pasuk is explained this way, that Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu. There's Hashem and there's Elokeinu. But we know that Hashem Echad, it's all one Hashem. Everything ultimately is for the good. Now, of course, we are taught to daven only for Toiv Hanirah, for Hanigla. We daven for good. We ask Hashem every day not to test us, but sometimes there are challenges. Sometimes it's Elokeinu. Sometimes it's things we don't understand. And very important hashkafa of Yiddishkeit is that no matter what happens, everything comes from Hashem. The things we understand and the things we don't understand. The things that are openly good and sometimes, chas v'shalom, things that are not openly good. Hashem Echad, it's all from one Hashem. And then, of course, there's the basic Shulchan Aruch, and such an important idea to discuss. What is the meaning, of course, appropriate to a child's level, but what is the meaning of Hashem Echad? It's not just that Hashem is only one God, and that the other gods are not true. Of course, that's a fact. Hashem Echad is deeper than that. As we know, Shulchan Aruch tells us that when we say Hashem Echad, we're supposed to think about the idea of the Aleph, Ches, and Daled. Ches is 8. The 7 heavens and the earth. Daled is Daled Ruchai Sa'olam, the 4 directions of the world. And that when we say Hashem Echad, we are taking everything, the whole of existence, ourselves included, and making them completely subservient to the Aleph, which is Alufai Shel Olam, the master of the universe. In other words, what this means in terms of our perspective is that our life has many things to it. And of course, even if we believe that Hashem is the boss, so to speak, and Hashem runs the world, that's not good enough. We have to make everything part of Hashem. We have to make that Hashem is the reality of everything. And what that means in practice is that everything that we do is centered around Hashem. B'chol drachecha de'eyu. Or like Chazal tell us, Ani nivresi l'shamash eskoini. I was created. Everything I do, not just the mitzvahs. In other words, not to make our lives compartmentalized. To say, I keep Shabbos, I put on tefillin, but then the rest of the time, I do what I want. No. The hashkafa we have to talk about and think about and discuss with our children is such an important foundation that a yid is someone who doesn't just do mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are the things that we are told to do at certain times. But a yid is someone that serves Hashem the whole day. That everything we do, we think about, is this in line with the Aleph? Is this in line with Alufay Shel Olam? Is this in line with serving Hashem? And of course, we need to reflect on that, of how much we are doing that. We are acting that way. Are we running our home where everything is about what Hashem's Ratzon is? Do our children know that every time we have a dilemma, we ask a Rav? Do our children know that we don't place overemphasis on the material part of living in our home and our lifestyle, but we are more worried about serving Hashem and using what we have to serve Hashem? This is something we have to think about, and think about how much of an example are we setting, together with the important discussion, particularly in this week's Parsha, of what the actual concept of Hashem Echad means, making our whole life, as we call it, God-centered, centered around Avodas Hashem. Have a wonderful day and a good Shabbos.